My name is Sophia. I'm 30 years old. Today I'm going to talk about the day that my father called me a failure on his birthday, so I showed him my bank account. It's a pleasure to have you here. Stay tuned until the end and tell me which city you're watching from. I want to know how far my story has gone. And click on like, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss the next stories here on the channel. It was supposed to be a celebration. My father was turning 65, and despite everything, the distance, the silences, the years of being treated like I didn't quite belong, I flew in for his birthday party. A big, flashy gathering at my brother Daniel's new house, full of people I hadn't seen in years. Some of them probably didn't even remember I existed. I wasn't even sure why I went. Maybe part of me still wanted to be seen. I wore a simple dress. Beige. Not too bright, not too dull. I thought about that a lot, how to take up just enough space not to be invisible, but not so much that I'd make anyone uncomfortable. I brought a bottle of good wine, and a card I had chosen carefully, one of those that say everything without saying anything. When I arrived, my brother's wife, Amanda, barely looked up from her phone to greet me. Daniel gave me one of those half hugs people give strangers at funerals. My mother smiled nervously and whispered, "Glad you made it," as if she were sneaking me into an event I wasn't invited to. And then there was my father. Standing tall, still proud, still the center of every room he entered. He looked past me when I walked in. He shook hands with one of Daniel's co-workers while I waited like a waitress with the wine bottle in my hand. Dinner was loud. A long table. Too many voices talking over each other. Daniel dominated the conversation, of course, telling everyone about the house, the new promotion, the car Amanda just got. My father beamed every time Daniel spoke. I chewed my food slowly and smiled when someone looked at me, which wasn't often. Then came the moment. The toast. My father stood up, glass in hand, and tapped it with a knife. The room went quiet. All eyes on him. He cleared his throat and gave a speech that started out sentimental. His life, his blessings, his beautiful family. "And look at my Daniel," he said, gesturing toward my brother. Promotion after promotion. A real man. A provider. I couldn't be prouder. And Amanda, always elegant. "You've given me so much to brag about." People clapped. My father waited, smiling, and then his eyes landed on me. "And then we have Sophia." There was a pause. "Too long." He chuckled. "Still figuring things out, I guess. Everyone's got one child who marches to the beat of her own drum. But we love her anyway." Some people laughed. Not all. Just enough. I swallowed hard and looked down at my plate. I felt like I had been slapped in the face in front of 30 people. The sound of the cutlery, the glasses clinking, it all faded for a second. My face burned. No one said anything. No one corrected him. No one defended me. The rest of the evening blurred together. I smiled when spoken to, nodded, helped clear the dishes. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even leave early. I just floated. That numb, automatic kind of existence I had perfected since I was a teenager. After dinner, I stepped outside to the backyard needing air. The night was cool. Quiet. The voices inside were muffled by the glass doors. That's when I heard it. My father's voice, behind me but out of sight, speaking to my uncle. "I don't know why she came," he said. "Sophia's a dead weight. Never done anything with her life. She just embarrasses herself showing up like that." I stood there frozen. My throat closed up. Dead weight. That's what he thought of me. I didn't go back inside. I walked to my rental car, holding my purse like it was the only thing keeping me upright. I drove to my hotel in silence. No music. No tears. Just silence. The kind that wraps around you when you finally understand. You were never really part of the picture. You were just in the corner, a blur people politely ignored. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the bed with my laptop open, staring at the numbers in my account. The ones I never showed anyone. 6 figures. All earned, all mine. Years of freelancing, starting my tech consulting firm, working late into the night, building something from nothing while they rolled their eyes at my choices. I remembered when I moved out at 20. My father said, "You'll be back. This world eats girls like you alive." He was wrong. The world didn't eat me. He did. And that night, As I looked at my numbers and the cold hotel lamp reflected off the screen, I made a decision. I wasn't going to ask to be seen anymore. But they were going to see me, whether they liked it or not. I flew back home the next morning. I didn't leave a note. I didn't text anyone goodbye. I just checked out of the hotel and took the earliest flight I could find. The entire way home, I kept seeing his face in my mind, the smirk when he said dead weight. The words echoed louder than the engine noise. When I unlocked the door to my apartment, everything felt smaller. Not because the space had changed, but because I had. Something had cracked open that night. A part of me that had spent 3 decades trying to earn my place at that table had finally broken loose and gone quiet. It didn't feel like defeat. It felt like exhaustion. I sat on the couch for a long time, still in the clothes from the party. I looked around at the life I had built. The simple, quiet space I called home. The work laptop, the stacks of notebooks, the vision board still taped to the wall. Every inch of that apartment was something I had done on my own. No help. No applause. No recognition. Just me. Growing up, I had always been the quiet one. Daniel was loud, athletic, the golden boy. He got the newest sneakers, the loudest praise, the biggest slice of cake. I got hand-me-downs and instructions. Be useful. Be quiet. Be good. My father used to say, Sophia's smart but she's not driven. She doesn't have the hunger. What he meant was, I wasn't like him. I didn't crave the spotlight. I didn't perform. That made me invisible. At 16, I taught myself how to code. I stayed up late on school nights building websites and fixing bugs for strangers online just to feel useful. My father once caught me and took my laptop away. Said I was wasting time. No one makes money on the internet, he laughed. At 18, I got into a good college out of state. I told him over dinner. He didn't even look up from his plate. That's fine, I guess. But who's going to pay for it? I had already gotten a scholarship. He never asked how. At 20, I moved out and never came back. The freedom was intoxicating. And terrifying. I waited tables, took online classes, and slowly began freelancing. I built a portfolio, then a reputation, then a business. Each step was hard. Lonely. But it was mine. I never posted about it. Never sent updates. I knew better. Success only counts in that family if it fits into a neat little box with a bow. If you can't explain it in one sentence at a dinner party, it doesn't count. I got used to being the outsider. The we don't know what she does exactly sibling. I stopped showing up for holidays. They stopped asking. It was mutual, silent, and comfortable in a painful kind of way. But still deep down, I held on to this fantasy. That one day, they'd notice. One day, they'd ask questions. Be curious. Be proud. That one day he'd see me, not just as his daughter, but as someone worthy. And that's what broke the night of the birthday party. Not the insult. Not even the laugh. It was the realization that the fantasy had been mine alone. They weren't waiting to see me succeed. They had never been looking at all. I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet. The savings. The investments. The contract with the global firm I had just signed for a consulting project. It was all there. Quiet proof of a life well lived. But suddenly, I didn't care about the numbers. I didn't want to prove anything. I wanted to reclaim something. My story. The next day, I called a travel agent. I booked a flight back for the following weekend. Round trip. I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't going to play the role of the surprise guest this time. I was going to walk into that house and be exactly who I was loudly. The part of me that had been silent for 30 years was ready to speak. What would you do if it were you? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe and activate the bell to receive all notifications so you don't miss the next story. I landed on Friday morning, rented a car, and drove straight to a nearby cafe. I didn't call anyone. I needed a few hours to remind myself why I was doing this. I opened my laptop, answered a few client emails, double-checked some figures, then closed it and just sat with my coffee. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. What I felt was heavier. A strange combination of sadness and resolve. Grief, maybe, for all the versions of me that tried so hard to be enough for them. Grief for all the holidays I spent quietly hoping someone would reach out. Grief for the little girl who once thought her father's love was something she could earn. That afternoon, I drove to my childhood neighborhood. Nothing had changed. Same cracked sidewalks. Same peeling paint on fences. I passed the park where I used to sit alone with library books while Daniel played soccer with the neighborhood boys. He was always the star. I was always in the background. I arrived at the house around 5 p.m. I parked 2 houses down and walked up the driveway slowly, carrying nothing but my phone and a small bag. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady. I rang the doorbell. My mother opened it. "Sophia?" Her voice was small, unsure. "Hi, Mom. Is Dad home?" She blinked, clearly flustered. "He's in the back. Daniel just got here too. It's poker night." Of course it was. I stepped inside. The house smelled the same, faint lemon cleaner and something fried. I stood in the hallway for a moment, taking in the old photographs still hanging on the wall. All of us as kids. Daniel in every single frame. Me in only a few. I walked past the kitchen and into the den. They were gathered around the table. My father, Daniel, 2 uncles and a neighbor. Laughing loudly. Cards in hand. Beers opened. My father glanced up mid-laugh and saw me. His face dropped. "Didn't expect to see you again so soon," he said, setting his cards down. "Yeah, I know." I sat in one of the armchairs, calm. "We need to talk." Daniel rolled his eyes. "Can this wait? We're in the middle of something." "No," I said. "It really can't." I pulled out my phone, opened a document I had prepared, laid it out in simple language. Earnings reports, contract agreements, savings breakdown. I read them aloud. No flair, no pride. Just facts. I looked directly at my father. "That's what I've been doing. Since I was 20. That's the life you said was a waste." No one spoke. Even the neighbor leaned back in his chair, awkward. I continued. "You called me a dead weight. You laughed in front of everyone. I came here to say that you don't get to define me anymore. I'm not here for validation. I'm here for clarity." My father looked at Daniel, then back at me. "You think money makes you better now?" he asked, a smug grin returning. "No. I think integrity does. And boundaries." He scoffed. "So what do you want, Sophia? Applause?" I shook my head. "No. I just wanted to finally say it to your face. I did it. Without you. Without any of you." Daniel got up, muttering something about drama. My uncles followed. They disappeared into the kitchen, murmuring. Only my father and I remained. He stared at me for a long time. "You always had a chip on your shoulder," he finally said. "And you always had a favorite," I replied. "I'm done pretending it didn't matter." I stood up. "I'm not asking you to be proud of me. I'm just asking you to stop hurting me." And then I walked out. Back in the car, I sat for a few minutes, hands shaking slightly. Not from fear. From release. I hadn't cried, hadn't yelled. But I had said everything I'd carried for so long. Later that night, I got a text from my mother. Just one line. I didn't know how to stop him. I stared at it for a while. Then turned off my phone. I didn't answer my mother's message. I read it over and over, letting the words hit. I didn't know how to stop him. It was the closest she had ever come to acknowledging what he did, what he was still doing. And maybe it was honest. Maybe she truly didn't know. But that didn't make it hurt less. A week passed. Then another. I returned to my work, to my quiet routines, but something was different. I had confronted the man who spent years diminishing me. I had said the things I thought I'd never have the courage to say. And while it didn't change him, it changed me. One afternoon my phone rang. I almost ignored it, until I saw the name, Aunt Linda. She was my father's younger sister. The only one in the family who ever really saw me. When I was little, she used to send me books for my birthday. She once whispered to me at a wedding, "You're not invisible, Sophia. You're just too bright for this family." I answered. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. Her voice was soft. "I heard what happened. Your mother told me." I didn't know what to say. "I just wanted to tell you something," she continued. "I've always known you were strong. But what you did, standing up to him like that, That was brave. My throat tightened. No one had ever called me brave before. He won't change, she added. But maybe it's not about changing him anymore. I exhaled. It's not. We talked for an hour. About the past. About the ways women in our family were taught to disappear. About how silence was passed down like furniture. And when we hung up, I sat in that rare feeling, connection. Understanding. It was quiet, but it filled a part of me I hadn't realized was empty. 2 days later, an email arrived from Daniel. Just a few lines. Dad wants to talk. He's not good at this, but he asked me to reach out. He says he didn't mean it the way it came out. I didn't reply. A few more days passed. Then my mother called. This time I answered. He's embarrassed, she said. He should be. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, would you come for dinner? Just me and you. I said yes. When I arrived, the house felt smaller. The lights were dimmer than I remembered. My mother had made pasta my favorite. She had even set the table for two. We talked. She asked questions. Real ones. About my business. My life. My apartment. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush me. Then she said something I'll never forget. I watched your father crush your spirit for years. I was afraid to interfere. But I see now, that silence was a choice too. I didn't forgive her, not right then. But I saw her. And for the first time, I think she saw me too. As I got up to leave, she walked me to the door. Will you come back? She asked. Maybe. She nodded. Back in my apartment, I opened a fresh document on my laptop. I titled it The Truth I Lived. I didn't know if it would become a book or a blog or just something for me. But I started writing. Not to explain myself. To remember who I am. 3 weeks passed. I didn't call. I didn't visit. I kept my focus on my work, and for the first time, I started sharing pieces of myself online. Snippets about starting from scratch, building something alone, what it means to grow up unheard. The response surprised me. Messages from women I didn't know poured in. Stories so similar it made my stomach turn. Daughters who were made to feel invisible. Professionals who were dismissed by their families. Women who never went back, and some who were still hoping for a different ending. And still, I didn't reach out to my father. One Sunday morning, while watering my plants, I saw another message come through. This time from Daniel. He's sick. Mom says it's not serious, but he's asking for you. Just letting you know. It was vague. Purposely so. I didn't reply immediately. I finished watering. I made coffee. I let the words sit. Asking for me? After everything? Hours later, I called my mother. What's going on? I asked. He had a scare, she said. Chest pains. They think it was stress. He's resting now. Silence hung on the line. He said your name, she added. Twice. I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. The next day, I drove down again. Not out of duty. Out of curiosity. I needed to know if anything had truly changed, or if this was another attempt to rope me back into silence. When I arrived, he was sitting in the backyard. Alone. No beer. No cards. Just a thin blanket over his legs and a glass of water by his side. He looked smaller. Didn't think you'd come, he said, not looking at me. I didn't either. I sat across from him. There was a long pause. Then he sighed. I was hard on you. That's putting it lightly. I didn't know how to raise a daughter like you. You didn't need me. I laughed once. Dry. No. I needed you to believe in me. You just didn't. He nodded slowly. His eyes didn't meet mine. I was wrong. It wasn't a grand apology. It didn't heal everything. But something about hearing it cracked something open. You used to say I was soft, I said. Too emotional. Too sensitive. He looked at me. I said a lot of things I didn't understand. You raised me like I was a burden. He didn't answer. I'm not here to make peace for you. I came for me. He nodded again. Fair. I stood up to leave. You did well, Sophia, he said finally. I paused. You don't need to say that, I replied. But thank you. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Not because he changed. but because I stopped needing him to. And that was everything. 6 months passed. My father recovered, slowly. He didn't reach out again. Neither did I. Whatever needed to be said had been said in that backyard. And I think we both understood that was the most peace we were ever going to find with each other. I kept writing. The document I had started, the truth I lived, turned into something more. A memoir almost. But not for publishing. It was just for me. Each chapter peeled back layers of silence I hadn't even realized were still clinging to me. One afternoon, I received a message from my cousin Rachel. She had read one of the posts I shared on social media. It wasn't about my father. It was about resilience. How some of us learn to become our own safety nets. Her message read, "You made me feel less crazy. I always thought it was just me." That moment stayed with me. I began hosting quiet dinners at my apartment, small groups, just women, friends, colleagues, women who carried similar wounds. We'd eat, laugh, talk about the ways we had all learned to shrink ourselves to fit into places that never made room for us. No one gave speeches. No one cried for effect. It was just presence. That's all any of us had needed. My mother visited once. She sat on my couch and looked around like she didn't quite believe it. My world. My space. She didn't say much. But before she left, she placed her hand on mine and said, "You turned out better than I expected." I didn't flinch. I just smiled. Because I did turn out better, despite everything. Not long after that visit, I received a letter. Handwritten. From my father. It wasn't long. Just a few lines. "Sophia. I was wrong in more ways than I can count. I won't ask for forgiveness I don't deserve. But I hope one day, when you think of me, you remember that I tried, even if too late." I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. I didn't write back. There was nothing left to say. A year to the day after his birthday, I went for a walk alone. I ended up near a lake I used to visit in college, back when I thought everything was still fixable. I sat on a bench, pulled out my phone, and opened a draft I had been working on for weeks. It was the last chapter of my personal story. I used to think healing would feel like justice, like getting back what I lost. But it doesn't. It feels like softness, like choosing not to carry the weight anymore, like no longer performing for an audience that never clapped. I hit save. I didn't need them to clap anymore. I had finally learned how to stand without applause. If you like stories like these, click like, subscribe, activate the bell and send it to someone you think will also like it.